If you're an intermediate to advanced learner and want some listening practice that has over 50 advanced phrases for you to learn through a natural, culture-led story, then stay with me because today's one is a good one. Two close friends got engaged and asked me to officiate their wedding. Yeah, marry them in New York, which, as I discovered, is something you're actually allowed to do over there and something you very much are not allowed to do in the UK. So you're getting a proper British versus American cultural comparison, a story involving a very late school bus, a thunderstorm warning, and a murderer on the loose. True story. And over 50 B2 plus phrases woven through it that you'll pick up without even trying. Before we begin the story, though, if you didn't know, the listening experience is really just the beginning with me because I then build out vocab explainer video lessons. I make quizzes and other interactive elements and host live coaching sessions inside the Academy to help you go from clueless to confident each and every week. So if you want a taste of that, head to thebritishenglishpodcast.com/academy trial. I'll say more about it later on. Let's start this story at the suit shop in Cheltenham. That is spelt Cheltenham, or looks like it would be pronounced Cheltenham, but pronounced Cheltenham. Cheltenham, a city just under an hour away from the place I now call home in England. And we have a problem. My bum has got so big that I can't find a single pair of suit trousers that fit me. From, skinny fit to tailored fit to straight fit, all the same result. Zipper buckling, waistband maxing, half my butt cheeks positively bursting out over the seam, saying, just, give up your day job and start letting this arse pay for your financial freedom in life. It was, it was rather embarrassing, especially when the sales assistant would come in and say, "How's it going?" So I drive home empty-handed, feeling a tight knot in my stomach, given that I have nothing to wear still and less than 3 weeks until I stand up in front of 100 people and explain the meaning of marriage and declare my friends to be legally married under the rights given to me by the state of New York. You see, a year ago, my friends, Katie and Tim, who have both guested on this podcast before, they got engaged to be married and asked me if I would be up for officiating their wedding. A huge privilege and one that most people like to be clothed when doing. So my work was cut out for me. I'd left it far too late, but there we are. So I begrudgingly go online and drop about $1,000 on 6 different suits, put it all on my credit card and hope that these suit companies will allow a refund. 4 days later, they've all arrived, and thankfully, we've found the one. We have found the one. But still, the bottom is proving a little big in the trousers. So my wife suggests I go extra large on the trousers and then take them to the alterations shop up the road. We do this, and I'm not kidding, with less than 12 hours to spare before we get on the transatlantic flight to marry one of my wife's best friends, I still had no trousers. But finally, the phone call arrived. I ran up to the shop, pulled them on up over the juicy number that will now henceforth be known as the money maker. And they fit like a glove. They fit perfectly. So off we go to the airport. Off we fly. Off I go into unconsciousness as I found myself a neck pillow that Stacey says gives her the ick. It gives her the ick. And I can see why, but I think it's the lesser of two evils because I have a very unattractive tendency to catch flies when I sleep vertically, catch flies in the mouth. And then when I wake up or come around, I give a little groan or loud snort, like, ugh, like that. And also jolting my neck at the same time. And after having flown to and from Australia a handful of times now, I've tested out all sorts of neck pillows. And the one that I'm somewhat satisfied with is this contraption that often makes people think that I've just come out of a car accident with a trauma to the spine. If you're interested, the pillow brand is called Turtle. But to give you a cryptic clue, try to spell it as if you're allergic to vowels, and then you'll find the brand that I'm talking about. But let's just take a second to acknowledge how you've already been exposed to a bunch of B2 plus native expressions that are likely difficult for you to fully understand. So instead of stopping and explaining them and ruining the flow of the story, I've created a free PDF for you to use whilst continuing to listen to this episode. It contains the non-native friendly definition of the difficult phrases, a clear example, context in which you should use and not use them, and then it gets you into the active learning stage with some very useful quizzes. So to get that, scan the QR code on screen right now or click the link in the description box, show notes, or comments section. That link will take you to this page that video podcast viewers can see right now. Fill in your name and email, and then, like magic, it'll be in your email inbox. Anyway, the smell of aeroplane food wakes me up from my paramedic advised sleeping position. And to our delight, the food is positively scrumptious. Thanks, Delta, for reminding us that not all airlines serve beef noodles for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I'm looking at you, China Eastern Airlines. Shame on you. I mean, not shame on you because, Easterners prefer Eastern food and Westerners prefer Western food. But, I'd like more than beef noodles, please, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Anyway, before we knew it, we were touching down in Boston Airport. I'll explain why, sort of, in a moment. So we were in Boston Airport, picking up our car rental and being bamboozled. Not fooled, though. Being bamboozled, not fooled by the sales representative. I think that's right in saying it. Bamboozled is more like confused, but we weren't fooled by the sales representative about they had this toll pass that was a little bit of a scam. So we said, no, we will not take you up on your toll pass scam. No. And then, we hit the road for a 5-hour drive to the Catskill Mountains / Big Hill Range in upstate New York. Now, I'm not sure if you're a clever clogs or a simpleton, but to rudely pretend you're the latter, whenever you hear them say New York, New York, if you've ever heard that, New York, New York, this is because New York is a state. It's a whole state, right? Which includes New York City. If you're a clever clogs, you know this. So feel just smug in the fact that you know this, right? So I did indeed marry my friends in New York, but not the city of New York, simply within the state of New York. They often say upstate New York, actually. This is an Americanism. Brits don't know this. Well, if you have friends in New York, you might know this. But yes, they reference going away from New York City, generally north of the city, saying, "Oh, I've got a second house in upstate New York in the Hamptons." Yeah, I think something like that. So they say upstate New York, referring to things generally north of New York City. And that is where we were. And that's why it was technically kind of similar to go from Boston Airport to upstate New York than New York City to upstate New York. If you've suddenly lost interest in this video, I get it. I get it. So have I. So anyway, we're back on the wrong side of the road again. You know, the wrong side, because the Brits drive up. Yeah. Supposedly keeping to like a measly 65 miles per hour while the state police cars zoom past, pulling over anyone who dares to be a rule breaker. And, you know, we carried on. I chuckled to myself for 3 hours pretty much about how American all the road signs were and how huge the cars were and just generally the highway systems. And then Stacey woke from her deep sleep as the passenger and said, "I'm hungry." And this was a reminder for us of our favorite food chain when we lived in Ohio back in 2014 to 2016, I think. And this fast food chain has actually since come to London, but we haven't actually been back to it yet. And it is Chipotle. Some say Chipotle, but that would be wrong. Chipotle. And what is it? It's a Mexican burrito joint. Now, being that we have two British-sized stomachs, we shared one. I think we shared a burrito bowl. And we both felt absolutely stuffed to the brim, and then got back on the road. And for your benefit, I will exclude the remaining uneventful but relatively enjoyable 2-hour drive across New York State. The destination was an Airbnb in the hills up a narrow dirt track that opened to a property with a huge terrace running along the side of it, a fire pit with outdoor seating, and a very Scandinavian looking hot tub round the back. A glorious, glorious setting for the build up to a wedding where I, once again, will be marrying one of my wife's best friends while my wife proudly observes. If you've just randomly decided to start the podcast this far in, I'm able to say that sentence because I am going to be officiating my wife's close friend's wedding. So to be clear, I'm not, starting a harem of wives or anything. And actually, let's have a little pause and explanation around this, because most countries do not allow this. And I'm talking about being an officiant, legally marrying two people. You're the one that's saying, do you take so-and-so, right? So not referencing the harem of wives. But I believe both would be illegal in many countries. Yes. Let me check. Ah, okay. Interesting. So I've given you a clue that one country at least allows you to get a temporary marriage license, right? There are 2 other countries apparently in the whole world. So there's 3 countries that allow you to get a temporary marriage license to marry potentially your friends or family. What would those other 2 be in your mind? Any guesses? We've got the United States of America. Can you think of the other 2? What could they be? Well, the second one is very close to the United States, just north of it, Canada. Canada, you can also do this. And then quite far away, on the other side of the world, the smaller one of the 2 that you might be thinking of, New Zealand. Yeah. So we've got the United States, Canada, and New Zealand. These are the only 3 countries that allow you to get a temporary marriage license. And I can't help myself. I'm just going to have a little quick check about the legality of harem of wives. Wow. Okay. So I've just learned that legally I could get married to multiple people in over 50 countries. in over 50 countries. That's shocking to me because most Western cultures class this as illegal. But yeah, I could have a harem of wives. Or I wonder how many countries it's allowed for women to have a harem of men. Normally, the word harem is to do with joking about having multiple female partners. I think it comes from Muslim vocabulary around an area in a household where women tend to congregate. But in British English, the general usage of the word is comical, using or no, referencing having multiple partners, female partners. Yeah, moving on from that word. But yeah, so the legality of officiating in the UK, you can't officiate a wedding legally. And that is actually why Stacey and my wife, we kind of had two weddings. We had the legal wedding in a town hall with just our immediate family members. And then 2 days later, we had what we see as our proper wedding because we had all our friends and family with us. It was the main event. It was the one we spent all our money on. And there we actually asked a family member to be our officiant. My mum married us. It was lovely, very sweet. Not because I'm a mummy's boy. Maybe I am. But just my mum's persona is just so fitting for that role. But technically, this ceremony was kind of just theatrical because we were already married 2 days ago. I know it sounds a bit weird and a bit pointless, but it's a workaround to the stricter rules in place in countries that don't allow temporary marriage licenses. Because, yeah, so 2 days before, a legal representative married us legally in a town hall. And then, 2 days later, my mum officiated, but it was just like she was leading the blessing. I think we call it a blessing if it's not the real thing. But yeah, basically, anyone listening to this episode, you could go to the US, you could fill out a few legal documents, pay $25, and then officially marry anyone you like, which is pretty crazy. I mean, you'll likely have to get their permission, but still, you could go to the land of the free and legally bind two people together until death do them part. Now, one thing that we were a little nervous about was the fact that Katie and Tim were rather, to borrow a phrase from those Yanks, gung-ho about having an outdoor wedding. And with that enthusiasm came a certain reluctance to entertain the idea of a plan B. And hey, despite downgrading myself from being blindly optimistic in my 20s to now being simply an optimist in my 30s, I think I'm still an optimist. I'm all for saying it'll work out just fine. But when we looked at the weather report 2 weeks prior to the wedding, the local area was under extreme thunderstorm warnings to the point at which they actually sent out flooding warnings. So this made me a little nervous, let's just say. And we actually experienced one of these firsthand when driving up to the area on the first day. It was so extreme that we couldn't even see the lane dividers when we were driving on the highway. We couldn't see anything, couldn't see the dotted lines or the sideline of the lane. The only thing we could see was the occasional brake light from the car in front of us if it was really, really close. So this area of upstate New York was getting a real hammering of bad weather. And they were very comfortable just saying, it won't rain. It won't rain. Anyway, the day rolls around. I've got my large Heine / moneymaker tucked away in my suit trousers that actually do fit. And out we, being the groom's party and myself, out we walk to get picked up to be taken to the wedding venue. And it was at this point that I learned that I'm about to get a nice little touch of American culture when Tim, the groom, tells me that he has booked a yellow school bus for the day to transport everyone to and from the wedding. And there's something about these American buses that has always fascinated me. I guess it's a little bit like a tourist enjoying the British Red phone box or the London Underground. It's just so iconic to the country and something we don't have in our own. So yeah, I was, dare I say, excited to get on a children's school bus as a 36-year-old man. Now, because it was a bus, we had to walk down the dirt track in 35-degree heat and very, very humid, in suits. I did have a linen blend, but still it was very hot. And yeah, we were to meet them on the road. And when I say them, I'm not meaning kids. I'm not meaning the plural them, like the bus driver and the kids. I'm assuming the bus will not be doing the school run on this day. I'm simply being woke enough to not assume it was a him who was driving the bus. Admittedly, it was. But still, there are plenty of female bus drivers in this modern day. And oh boy, do I wish it was a female bus driver. I mean, I just wish it was not this bus driver. Firstly, because it was not 10 minutes, not 20 minutes, but 30 minutes late. At which point we had phoned the company to only get the answer machine, walked back up the dirt track to drive ourselves to the venue, and told the bride the bus isn't coming for everybody, which sent her into a wild fury as she was getting her hair and makeup done, which is what you want, right? And then, as we were driving down the dirt road, there it appeared. So back we go, reversing up the dirt road, running down the dirt road and onto the bus with very dirty shoes. And guess what he said when we asked, why were you so late? He said, oh, I had to get gas. No, don't say that. Do not say that. That is like saying, why are you late? Oh, I had to wake up and have breakfast. I mean, obviously you need fuel in the tank of a bus. And given that you're being paid, according to Tim and Katie, over $2,000 for a wedding hire, it's quite important to not be horrendously late. But the fun didn't stop there, actually, because he turned to us and said, how do I turn around? How do we know? We said, we don't know. We're not from around here. We've been here a day. And he said, I'm not from around here too. He tried to high five the situation. Unbelievable. Then he said, how do I get to the venue? Then he turned the engine off and rang his boss for 5 minutes. Then I noticed he didn't have his phone on for directions, nor a sat nav, and he didn't even have a map. So I decided to sit up front like the geek in school and spoon feed him directions from my phone on how to do his job. And given that he was so late, we had to ring a bunch of guests and apologize and tell them that they'd need to drive themselves to the venue as the bus driver was, 1, very late, and 2, wouldn't know how to find the addresses. So did I feel satisfied from getting to go on an American yellow school bus? No, not one bit. I was pissed off, very hot and very, very sweaty, which is a great state, both emotionally and physically, to be in, to stand up in front of 100 people and tell them about the meaning of marriage. And a quick reminder that I went ahead and made you a free PDF for this episode. It's got the key phrases, simple explanations, proper examples, and a few exercises to lock them in. Basically everything you need to actually remember the phrases you've just heard, not just nod along and forget it by Thursday. So to get that, scan the QR code on screen right now, or click the link in the description box, show notes, or comments section. And that link will take you to this page that video podcast viewers can see. Fill in your name and email, and then like magic, it'll be in your email inbox. So fast forward to the moment I'm stood up in front of 100 people, or 199 eyes. You know, one guy had a glass eye. Joking, that was a joke. Was that distasteful? I think it was. So 200 eyeballs, I think. Maybe there were less. 200 eyeballs looking at me. My mouth was starting to go dry, and my face was continuing to perspire heavily. In fact, at one point, I think when they were reading their vows to one another, I went like this to pretend that I was weeping from the emotions and dabbing my tears. But really, I was just using my finger like a window screen wiper for the sweat on my cheek. I went like that. Oh, that's so beautiful. Ugh. But yes, I step up to the mic and begin my debut performance as a legal wedding officiant. I still can't believe it, actually. And I've actually got the footage. So I'll play a few clips for you right now to give you a sense of what it was like. Katie, please place the ring on Tim's finger. It's that one, isn't it? That's all right. It fits. And Tim, please, can you place the ring on Katie's finger? Is it that way, Ali? Tim and Katie, you have declared your intention to marry, shared your promises and exchanged rings as a symbol of them. I'm going to ask you each one very important and legally necessary question. Katie, do you solemnly declare that you take Tim to be your husband?
I do.
Tim, do you solemnly declare that you take Katie to be your wife?
I do.
It is therefore my enormous pleasure, by the authority given to me by the state of New York, and once again the internet guys, to pronounce you husband and wife. You may now kiss the bride. And that was that. Did it go smoothly? Yes and no. The biggest blunder I had was suddenly realizing that I'd got the order in my script wrong, and that we should be doing the rings first and then the I do's and then pronouncing them married, rather than doing the I do's, the rings, and then pronouncing them married. I was probably overthinking it all, but I did have this moment of confessing to everyone, I've made a huge mistake here. Hang on, guys. What do you think? So yeah, that was a bit of an error. But, you know, people came up to me after the ceremony and were very generous with their praise. So I think I did a good enough job for them. And Tim and Katie seemed very happy with the whole ceremony, which is the main thing, right? So, yeah, I don't think I'll be chomping at the bit to give up my day job and become a full-time officiant, but I'll definitely treasure that experience, you know, being able to marry a couple of very close friends in front of their nearest and dearest in a far off land. That was pretty special. And yeah. Oh, and the weather, it held out. It held out for the entire ceremony. And then, a matter of minutes after sending them back down the aisle as a couple of newlyweds, the heavens opened up and really drenched the entire venue for a good hour or two, which was rather dramatic. But as the ceremony was like bathed in sunshine, it seemed rather fitting. Then the sun came back after the 2 hours of drenching everyone or everything because we were inside. And what else did the day entail? We did a pub quiz. Very unusual, not a normal thing for either American or British wedding, but they had this kind of festival theme going on, which was pretty cool. And I, I started on the pub quiz master for stating a question incorrectly. I'd had quite a few gin and tonics straight after being the priest. Not priest. I wasn't a priest. I was the officiant, right? But then I necked a couple of gin and tonics, was a bit drunk, and the quiz master phrased something slightly incorrectly, and it was about a word in American English and British English, and I felt very passionate that I had got it right, and he said that no, that was wrong. But the way that I'm getting into it again. No need to get into it with you. You don't care. But yeah, I thought this was I thought this person was paid to do this pub quiz. It turned out he was the groom's mother's partner. Oops. So that didn't go down great. So I got my first officiant complaint, my first complaint on my debut. And then we played beer pong, got even more drunk, danced along to the Beatles, made some s'mores. Yes, that was fun. And then the sun went down and we listened to Tim's friend play a spellbinding half-hour set around the campfire. It was so good. What else? Well, I suppose I have left out the murderer who was on the loose in the area, and the fact that the American school bus never returned to pick us up. But given how long this is getting, I think, as they say, better to leave them wanting more, right? 2 days later, we were packing our bags, driving back to Boston, tucking into some deliciously Western aeroplane food on the red eye back to London, and touching down in Heathrow Terminal 3. We were picked up by my auntie, thanks Shelley, and home we went. And there we go. My recollection of marrying my wife's best friend in New York. Now, if you were listening closely, you'll have picked up a fair few B2 plus phrases along the way. Gung-ho, clever clogs, chomping at the bit, quite a few others in there. So the point of this is to give you some good listening practice with something cultural, something that actually happened. And along the way, your brain picks up language in context rather than, trying to learn a vocabulary list. But the truth is, listening to this and enjoying it is one thing, but actually being able to use like the moneymaker in a sentence next week without sounding like you're reading it off a flashcard is a completely different skill. And it's the bit most people don't really know how to get right, which is where people get stuck in the intermediate level. And that is the exact gap my academy, or the academy, is built to close. I take episodes like this one, turn them into video tutorials, breaking down the phrases properly, give you a load of quizzes to bed them in, a live Q&A on Zoom where you can ask me any questions that you need clarifying. And then my favorite bit, I get you to write your own dialogue using those phrases, which I then mark on a Zoom session with you. And that's where the real nuance comes out. It's like, oh, yes, okay, you've conjugated it a little bit incorrect there. Most natives would use it in that context, not this context. We wouldn't use it in a question form, etc., etc. So you would be able to go from hearing a phrase like moneymaker in a story that I've just given you to then feeling confident enough to use it in a real conversation yourself. And at the moment, you can try the whole experience of the academy for a whole month for just £5. You'll learn a hell of a lot in that month. And if it clicks with you, then you'll have a solution to help you go beyond your level of English. I do want to say this academy, it's ideally a place for upper intermediate to lower advanced learners. So B2 to C1, though plenty of B1 and C2 learners get a lot out of this program too. So if you're interested, head to thebritishenglishpodcast.com/academy trial or click the link in the show notes, description box or comments. Right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. You've been listening to me, Charlie, the host of the British English Podcast. I hope to see you next time. Bye for now.